Qiao Shang traveled to a mystical continent and became a northern Liang giant merchant of the Qian dynasty, activating the heavenly summoning system. Wandering in the shadows, strangling in the invisible shadow guards. Riding 1,000 miles, Zhao Yun is invincible. A mediocre sweeping monk hidden in the old city. The heavenly pride of the various celestial planes gathers here, competing together for the great world. Chapter 1. At the beginning, subordinates turn against each other and summon shadow guards. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. President, don't blame us for the backlash. If you blame us, blame others for giving us too much. A middle-aged businessman dressed up with a hint of malice on his face said. Qiao Shang, surrounded by a group of guards, had a particularly serious expression. This was not the first time he had encountered betrayal from his subordinates, but to his surprise, the traitors colluded with the bandits and wanted to kill him. He clenched his fists and tried his best to suppress his anger, saying, "What price have they offered? I am willing to pay twice, just to save my and my men's lives." The bandit led by the horse suddenly burst into laughter, with a hint of disdain on his face. He raised his machete and said, "Double. What we want is everything. If you die, all the money and treasures are ours." After speaking, the leading horse bandits drove their brown horses towards the caravan and charged towards it. The 7th-rank warrior, wielding a curved sword and emitting a strong bloody aura, fiercely slashed at the guards beside Qiao Shang. A simple old man with white hair stood in front of Qiao Shang and said decisively, "Young master, hurry up and I'll put you in the back." Qiao Shang watched as his carefully cultivated guards collapsed in front of him, revealing the power of an 8th-level warrior on his body. But the bandits were only surprised for a moment, but their killing intent became even stronger in their hearts. A young man who is not yet at the age of tying his hair is actually an 8th-level warrior. Although such a talent is not considered exceptional, it is indeed extremely rare. An inferior sword suddenly unsheathed and struck a young leader of an 8th-rank horse bandit. Although Qiao Shang's strength is good, in recent years, he has been running around for business and his practical ability is not strong. Xiao Tumu let out a loud shout and kicked the guard in front of him, blocking his chest with a horizontal sword. Then, he cleverly released his strength to avoid the sharp edge of the sword and slashed towards Qiao Shang with a backhand slash. The figure of the old man before was like a ghost, appearing in front of Qiao Shang. With a casual strike, he repelled the small head and said, "Young master, run quickly. Leave the Green Mountains without worrying about firewood burning. You must not die here, otherwise how can we deserve your kindness?" The horse bandits, led by them, saw a hidden 7th-level warrior who shook the ground with his horse and his powerful momentum gradually climbed. He held a curved sword and pointed it directly at the old man. As the swords of both sides intersected, a huge wave of spiritual power spread out, and the old man was shaken back and forth, spewing out a mouthful of blood. "Even an old thief with weakened chi and blood dares to stop me." The bandits wielded their machetes and attacked again, turning a blind eye to the other guards. Qiao Shangmu's eyes were about to crack, and his whole body couldn't help but tremble. However, the difference in strength prevented him from surpassing the small leader in front of him. In just a moment, more than 50 guards suffered heavy casualties, leaving only a dozen brothers to persevere. Ding, the heavenly summoning system has been successfully activated. First activation, reward 3 summoning opportunities. Qiao Shang's whole body was shaken, and the despair in his eyes instantly turned into ecstasy. A vast starry sky emerged in his mind, with countless stars shining brightly. The heavenly summoning system can summon people, horses, and objects from all walks of life, including novels, movies, anime, and more. Qiao Shang didn't have time to carefully read these messages and kept shouting in his heart, "Use the summoning 3 times immediately." Ding, summoning is activated. The starry sky in his mind sparkled like a dreamy bubble. 3 shooting stars descended in front of Qiao Shang. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the loyalty of the 3 shadow guards of the unknown plane, summoning character. Shadow Guard *3, cultivation. Martial 4th level, loyalty. 100, potential. Third-rate talents, system, where are people? Ding, the host's mind summons, summoning characters to immediately descend in front of the host. Qiao Shang's thoughts turned, and 3 figures shrouded in black robes appeared out of thin air, tearing open the cracks in space and coming to him. Without much time to say, Qiao Shang ordered directly, go. Kill all these bandits. The 4th-level warrior is already the pinnacle of the 3rd-level warrior, and can rely on a trace of the power of heaven and earth. The spiritual power is continuous like a torrent, which is completely incomparable to the lower 3rd-level warrior. In just a moment, the heads of the bandits approaching the caravan flew eerily, as if an invisible thread had cut their throats at the same time. The bandit led by the horse was frightened and didn't have time to pay attention to the dying old man. He immediately turned his head and rode away. Unfortunately, the speed of the 4th-level warrior completely exceeded the range that the naked eye could detect, and the dagger shining with cold light instantly pierced the neck of the 7th-level horse bandit. Fresh red blood spurted out, and his face looked incredulously at the shadow guard standing in front of him, with a look of fear in his eyes. More than 100 bandits have been completely killed in just 10 breath time. Qiao Shang quickly stepped forward to help the trembling old man. Young master, who are these 3? It's okay, Qian Bo. They're all my people. Qiao Shang used his spiritual power and carefully examined Qian Bo's injuries. Fortunately, I was only injured by spiritual power and my internal organs were not a threat to my life. For martial artists, taking a break should not be a big deal. At this point, the guard had already caught several traitors who wanted to escape, with a murderous expression on their faces and said, President, what should we do with this group of people? Qiao Shang helped Qian Bo onto his carriage without even looking at these traitors and said, tie it up and drag it behind the carriage, don't let them just die like this. The guards quickly tied it up. A few people with mournful eyes collapsed on the ground and begged frantically, young master, let us go. We dare not dare again. Upon hearing their plea for mercy, Qiao Shang's anger erupted in his heart and he said, let you go. Who will let me, these dead brothers? I recruited you from the refugees to my command, and that's how you repay me. How can I live up to my deceased brothers if you don't die? A group of guards were angry and gave them a fierce beating, so as not to say any more foul language and anger the young master. Qiao Shang sat on the carriage and looked at the scene of bloodshed behind him, saying, take the bodies of the brothers back, it's good to bury them alive. These guards were all raised by him from a young age among the refugees, all alone and without a wife. At the thought of this, his anger couldn't be suppressed. Qian Bo, who was in the carriage behind him, poked his head out and said, young master, you haven't left any survivors either. Qian Bo's meaning was clear to Qiao Shang. His mind kept spinning, and the killing intent in his eyes couldn't be concealed, saying, I don't need to live to know who did it. Although Qiao Shang's business is not big, we sell salt. Which of the many chambers of commerce in Beiliang is not envious? No one used to take action because they were busy snatching food supply and transportation from the Beiliang army. Now that the war has subsided, they have time to trouble us. Qian Bo showed a serious expression and said, isn't our stronghold in Liaocheng? Immediately, Qiao Shang's face showed a hint of a smile and he said, I had anticipated this issue long ago. I sent them out before leaving this time and quietly left. I originally planned to finish shipping this batch of goods and return to the grassland, but I didn't expect these guys to be so eager to deal with us. Chapter 2. Broken Trade Routes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse, and Qiao Shang, along with a caravan of only 20 guards, quickly sneaked through the uninhabited grassland. This attack woke up Qiao Shang, and Qian Chao couldn't go anymore. A month ago, the grassland's great plunder of the Northern Liang dynasty ended in a disastrous defeat. The cold winter has also arrived, and it is impossible for the grasslands to raid Beiliang again. All of this means that the Beiliang garrison has entered a stable stage, and unnecessary expenses have also come to a halt. For example, the rewards of soldiers in the Northern Liang army and additional troops from other places will all be reduced. The large chambers of commerce entrenched in the Qian dynasty also lost the huge business opportunity of military spending. For this reason, they turned their gaze to other places. For example, Qiao Shang's refined salt business and the disastrous failure of the grassland will pay a huge price to purchase winter grain from the Qian dynasty. Of course, on the surface, the Qian dynasty did not allow the sale of grain to grassland people for winter. But smuggling has always been a lucrative business, and merchants are always just a group pursuing profits. A great man in his past life once said, "When the profit reaches 10%, they will be eager to make a move. When the profit reaches 50%, they will take risks. When the profit reaches 100%, they dare to trample on all human laws. When the profit reaches 300%, they dare to risk hanging." The profit from smuggling grain has long exceeded 300%. Even if Emperor Qianhuang stood on the North Liangqing Tower, these merchants dared to smuggle grain under his nose. Of course, smuggling is not entirely harmful. Major chambers of commerce can scrape the oil and water off the grassland people in the 4 months of cold winter. Including most of the warhorses, this group of grassland people will not have enough light cavalry next year and will only become a target for the soldiers of Beiliang. For the imperial court, the Grand Chamber of Commerce would not consider these, as in their eyes, there is only a profit far exceeding the military expenses of Northern Liang. So the big business associations actually don't want to see the grassland always win, and the best outcome is the same as now, losing miserably every few years. Once the grassland suffered a disastrous defeat, what greeted them was the end result of being wiped clean by these merchants, which can be said to be a cold winter returning to the pre-liberation period. Unlike ancient times, the grassland here was not a threat to the Qian dynasty, or rather, this grassland was not a danger to the Qian dynasty. From Beiliang to the north, tens of thousands of kilometers away, there exists a powerful northern desert court. The Qian dynasty and the Kangyi ancient kingdom to the west were both on guard against the northern desert court. On the surface, this grassland is actually the envisioned battlefield designated by the Qian dynasty and Kangyi ancient kingdom for the northern desert court. However, in Qiao Shang's eyes, the Qian dynasty and Kangyi ancient kingdom were only afraid of the northern desert court and did not want to conflict with it, so they left this grassland behind. These were all things that Qiao Shang heard from his family when he was still in the Qian dynasty, but everything changed 8 years ago. The current Qian dynasty was founded for 1,300 years and served as over 20 emperors. The history of our past lives tells us that feudal dynasties had a certain historical inertia, which is known as the rise and fall of power. It is not difficult to understand that from the establishment of a dynasty to its peak, the distribution of social resources is generally reasonable and orderly, crossing that historical stage. Due to the nature of feudal society, these social resources will not flow again. For example, a farmer who is good at cultivating land will manage a piece of land properly, but people will die of old age. You cannot guarantee that his son is also a farmer who is good at farming. In turn, this land will always welcome a farmer who is not good at farming. The land here refers to social resources, while farmers symbolize the upper class of feudal society. These upper classes are not only not good at managing land, but also use means to plunder land from the lower classes. Over time, the upper class holds more and more social resources, while the lower class can only become servants and slaves at the mercy of others, and even refugees. The Qian dynasty could have existed for 1,300 years, but unfortunately, it was an extraordinary world where the lower class found it difficult to promote dynastic succession through violent means. Even 10,000 lower third-level warriors couldn't help but obtain a first-level warrior, but killing 10,000 lower third-level warriors was an easy task for a first-level warrior. So the upper class of the Qian dynasty were all high and looked down upon the Qiao family as border merchants. This also led to 8 years ago, a light cavalry deputy general in the border army of Liaoqing dared to collect taxes and recruit soldiers without authorization. Most of the merchants and aristocratic families in Liaoqing were looted, and anyone who dared to resist would be robbing their families and exterminating them. The Qiao family was also one of the rebels at that time. What's even more ridiculous is that this light cavalry deputy general from 8 years ago has now reached the 3rd rank and been promoted to the position of general of Northern Liang cavalry. The vast north is cool, with 1 person below and 10,000 above. Qiao Shang sat on the top of the carriage, looking at the sparse starry sky above his head, recalling past scenes. He was born into the Qiao family and can be considered one of the indigenous people of this world, but his mind holds memories of the previous life. The longer you live in this world, the harder it becomes to distinguish whether you are a traveler or something. But these are not important anymore. 8 years have already worn away his sharpness. After 8 years of hard work, the strongest person under my command is only a beginner in the 6th grade, and being in the military is just 1,000 flags. Revenge has become a luxury in the Qiao Shang Center. But now he looked at the panel in front of him, everything became possible, and the light in his eyes became increasingly intense, almost spraying out. Young master, it's cold up there. Let's go into the carriage to avoid the cold wind. Qian Bo's weak voice sounded. Qiao Shang finally regained his senses and shook his head, saying, "No need, I have already heard the sound of the Li River crashing on the shore." Qian Bo also pushed open the wooden window of the carriage and listened carefully, sniffing the moist air. His pale face softened slightly. Winter has arrived, and I'm afraid the ice flood will happen after the next cold wave. The fleet needs to plan ahead. Qiao Shang nodded and said, half a month ago, the caravan had already headed south, and Baihan Island's reserves were also quite sufficient. At this point, his brow furrowed again, as the road that was originally heading south had been cut off. If you want to go south again, you must either open a new commercial route or head east to bypass Beiliang and enter the interior of Qianqiao. The cost of opening a new commercial road is an astronomical figure. The officials of the Qian dynasty were greedy, and it was impossible for them to obtain clearance tickets without satisfying their appetite. Entering the East China Sea is not easy either. Many islands in the East China Sea are owned by their owners and there are no places to stop and replenish supplies. Unless it is sold at a low price to the pirates on the island, the risk will be much higher and the profit will be much lower. Qiao Shang sighed and opened the panel. Host. Qiao Shang, Cultivation. Martial 8th level, Wealth Value. 13. He has been studying this system all the way. But this thing seems to have no self-awareness, not even basic intelligence, only simple 3-line subtitles. However, Qiao Shang could also guess that this wealth value should be the value converted from his own wealth. Because his current silver is only 130,000 taels, the system seems to not convert land, troops, and fleets into wealth values. That is to say, only cash can be converted into wealth value. Chapter 3. Baimu Chamber of Commerce. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Li River runs across the north and south, with the southernmost end leading directly to the Qianqiao-Neijiang River and the northernmost end connecting to the northern desert Wangting. A river has nurtured countless merchants and also gave birth to a very special group. Jiang merchants. The Baimu Chamber of Commerce founded by Qiao Shang is also one of the Jiangshang merchants. A large ship over 30 meters high stopped by the riverbank and saw the arrival of the caravan. The fast ship with 5 guards was rushing towards the shore by the side of the large ship. Led by Qiao Shang is the only 6th-level warrior under his command, Hada. This person is very burly, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, and his arms are almost as thick as his thighs. You can tell at a glance that Hada is a grassland man. 4 years ago, when Qiao Shang was still a grassland wanderer, he saved Hada, who was covered in injuries. Afterwards, Hada followed behind Xiao Shang with unwavering loyalty and rapid improvement in strength. In just 4 years, he was promoted from the 8th rank to the current 6th rank. In the darkness, a rough and wild shout came. "President, is that the president?" Xiao Shang's face turned black. There was no Jiang Shang who answered the Chamber of Commerce like this, without any slogans or gestures. Xian Bo chuckled at this and liked Hada's straightforward nature very much. Hada, dressed in fur, jumped onto the shore and the boat under him shook violently. However, the guards on board had already become accustomed to their own commanding personality. Hada walked 2 steps to Xiao Shang's side and said with a silly smile, "I've seen the president a long time ago. It was Mrs. Su who cursed and refused to let me come over early to welcome him." Xiao Shang slapped Hada's broad tiger back and said, "How many times have you said that you should first answer the secret code before picking up the ship? What if you encounter the Jiang bandits?" "Hi. Jiang bandits are nothing, I'll kill as many as I come." Hada slammed his chest and said confidently. He is also speechless, no longer wasting his words. In half a moment, all the goods of the caravan have been loaded and unloaded. Xiao Shang looked at dozens of newly born saplings on the shore, buried beneath them were all the guards who had died this time. Hada's face also darkened, and the giant axe in his hand creaked as he spoke in a muffled voice, "Has someone been plotting this?" Although he appears rough on the surface, his mind is very meticulous. My young master has always been cautious, and no one knows which path he will take. If so many brothers were to die, someone must have started calculating early and prepared well. He had no expression on his face. The traitor had long been hanged halfway, and this group of people were all merchants stationed in Liaocheng. If it weren't for the intention to evacuate the people inside Qianchao, he wouldn't have brought this group of people into the grassland. Because this kind of thing is not the first time, even if Xiao Shang treats them well. Even if Xiao Shang saved their lives. Let's go. I will retrieve this account. Hada nodded and sprinkled the wine in his hand on the ground, his killing intent in his eyes undisguised. The winter river wind is extremely strong, and the sails can be half opened to move forward quickly. On the main ship sat a middle-aged woman wrapped in a gray-white linen headscarf, also known as Sun Yang. Sun Yang was a former merchant under the Qiao family. When the Qiao family was in trouble, she protected them from leaving Beiliang and entering the grassland. Nowadays, the Baimu Chamber of Commerce has such a large scale, and Sun Yang has made great contributions. Sun Yang held 2 brown, steaming porcelain cans and hung them from the ceiling. She looked at Xiao Shang who came in with a smile and said, "Young master, come and have a bowl of fish soup." Xiao Shang was also polite and scooped a few spoons from the porcelain jar. The hot fish soup dispelled the chill all over his body, and he eagerly took a few sips. Sun Yang glanced behind Xiao Shang and her face changed, asking, "Did something unexpected happen?" Xiao Shang nodded and said, "I have been ambushed and many brothers have died. I knew that refined salt would definitely be coveted by others. If it doesn't work out this time, they will definitely find another way." Sun Yang's voice was somewhat urgent. As a businessman, she was too familiar with the profits that refined salt could bring, and also too familiar with the virtues of these Qian dynasty merchants. Xiao Shang asked calmly, "How are the sails on the river?" Sun Yang looked at him with hatred and said, "There's nothing bad about selling refined salt. We should think about how to hold on to these refined salts. Moreover, producing them on ships is not a long-term solution." These Qiao merchants all understood that their original plan was to make quick money with refined salt to expand the escort team of Baihan Island. Whether it is Jiangshang or other chambers of commerce, in order to develop, their own strength must be strong. Otherwise, it's just a sweet spot in the eyes of others, and you can take a bite at any time. The headquarters of Baimu Chamber of Commerce is located on Baihan Island, with 800 guards, all of whom are among the elite. With the support of 800 guards, the Baimu Chamber of Commerce has also established a foothold among the Jiang merchants, which can be considered as having a certain reputation. But this is far from enough. The giants of the Jiang merchants, with over 1,000 ships and tens of thousands of people under their command, and countless skilled merchants, engaged in business in the Three Kingdoms and even entered the East China Sea archipelago. Or perhaps the previous Lijiang agreement between the Jiang merchants stipulated that all Jiang merchants must not act against other Jiang merchants without reason, otherwise they will be jointly executed. Otherwise, small forces like the Baimu Chamber of Commerce would have been completely devoured by those giants. All Qiao Shangsai is eager to expand the escort team and establish the reputation of the Baimu Chamber of Commerce. Otherwise, we will never receive substantial orders and can only compete with nearly 100 Jiang merchants to snatch the leftovers left by the Grand Chamber of Commerce from our hands. Sun Yang, how much energy is produced from refined salt now? Xiao Shang asked. Sun Yang paused for a moment and thought for a moment before saying, "Not much, it's only 4,000 pounds per month. After all, our ship is not big, and we need to do a good job of confidentiality. How much more do you have in your hands?" 2,400 pounds, I didn't dare to throw it away. Sun Yang frowned and continued, "You don't want to sell all these refined salts, do you?" Xiao Shang nodded with a smile and took off all the porcelain cans hanging on top, completely ignoring Sun Yang's nervous and angry expression. "Kid, you're not going to die. Do you know how many pairs of eyes are staring at us now? Once the refined salt is exposed, it's a disaster." Sun Yang slammed her rough hands onto the table and spoke sharply. Xiao Shang waved his hand and said, "Sun Yang, you know me well. Without complete certainty, I wouldn't do this." Candlelight flickered on the ship, and Sun Yang's eyes were fixed on Xiao Shang. Suddenly, she let out a sigh of relief and said, "Forget it, Baimu Chamber of Commerce belongs to you. Let's all listen to you." After speaking, he walked towards Qian Bo's room. He can't say anything, after all, the system is definitely not something that can be said. After drinking the fish soup, Xiao Shang will enter the treasure trove in the ship. Here are all the silver accumulated in 3 months, not much more than 10,000 taels. Consciously speaking to the system consumes 5 wealth points to summon. In an instant, Xiao Shang's consciousness entered a starry sky, with scattered stars floating in the sky. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the loyalty of the 5 Shadow Guards. Summoning character. Shadow Guard *5, Cultivation. Martial 4th level, Loyalty. 100, Potential Value. Third-rate talent. Xiao Shang frowned, why are the Shadow Guards summoned 8 times? However, the silver in the treasury before me did not disappear. Is this because the 5-point wealth value does not include the current 10,000 taels, or does consuming wealth value not affect real wealth? Chapter 4. The Giant Axe Gang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In order to dispel the doubts in his heart, Xiao Shang began summoning 8 times without hesitation, clearing all the wealth in his hand. Even if he really wants to consume real silver, he doesn't care. After all, this money was originally used to expand the recruitment of guards, and the strength of each shadow guard is no less than 500 elite guards, so it seems that they are not at a loss. But just after Xiao Shang summoned 8 shadow guards again, the system's prompt sound came on. Ding! The host completes 10 level 1 summoning sessions, and the system officially starts. Characters or items summoned at level 1 will enter the mall page, and level 2 summoning will be activated. Reward a 2nd level summoning opportunity on top of the random Xiao Shang panel. A shopping mall panel appeared, and the 10,000 silver taels in the treasure trove did not disappear, which also means that wealth value and real wealth are only unilaterally related. The mind opened the mall, and Shadow Guard was prominently listed. The system did not offer any discounts, and the selling price was also 1 point of wealth value. With a lesson from previous experiences, can 10 2nd level summoning unlock 3rd level summoning? Qiao Shang silently said, the system uses a second-level summoning once. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining the loyalty of the Shadow Flow Lord. Jie, summoning character. Lord of Shadow Flow. Jie, cultivation. Martial third level, potential. Second-rate talents. Qiao Shang widened his eyes, the hero in the alliance. Jie. This is a truly powerful and ruthless person. Even if he betrays the balanced sect and kills countless people, from his purpose, Jie is indeed a positive figure. For Jie, this world may be more suitable for him, just like the famous saying. Balance is the mentor of fools. Strong boxing is the king of this world. Under the vast starry sky, the figure of Jie tore open the night sky and descended into reality. The silver mask exudes an extremely cold aura, and he is not the assassin hidden in the shadows, but the true shadow. With sharp spikes attached to his hands, when he saw Qiao Shang, he respectfully tapped them and said, I've seen my lord before. All the coldness on his body disappeared, standing in front of Qiao Shang like an ordinary assassin. He was a bit excited and didn't know how to greet the Shadow Flow Lord. He took a deep breath and said, for the Baimu Chamber of Commerce, for the ordinary people who have fallen into the painful quagmire, and for the beliefs in your heart, the Shadow Stream sect should regain its glory in this world. What kind of person is Jie? If someone has read his background story, they should know. Young Jie is full of indignation, dissatisfied with the balance and order that his master cried about, and more convinced of the deterrence brought by the sword and blood. It's a bit like Jia Su, the first poisonous warrior in the Three Kingdoms, who resorted to any means to achieve his goals, but the goal was to uphold justice in his heart. Qiao Shang's words really hit the justice in Jie's heart. Jie bowed respectfully to Qiao Shang and said, I will strictly follow your instructions. 10 shadow guards appeared next to Qiao Shang and said, follow me first, these 10 shadow guards will be dispatched by you. After speaking, both Jie and Yingwei disappeared into the shadows. But through the system, he can clearly feel that their location is near him. Qiao Shang, who walked out of the treasure trove, had a wild smile on his face. 16/4 order, 1/3 order is sufficient for his self-protection problem after generalizing refined salt. 3 days later, the fleet finally entered the Baihan Island watershed. The entire Baihan Island is an island formed on a huge rock foundation, approximately the size of nearly 100 football fields. 2 years ago, Qiao Shang bought it for 400,000 silver and became his largest stronghold. Of course, Baihan Island is not simple on the surface, except for rows of huge trees growing along the coast. The deeper you go, the more barren it becomes, just because there is no grass growing inside, because it is filled with patches of rock salt. The salt in this world is only crude salt that has undergone simple processing, and no one can afford high-purity refined salt except for aristocratic families, sects, or imperial dynasties. Qiao Shang obtained this piece of rock salt and spent several months developing the Qiao's salt-making method, refining a small amount of refined salt, relying on his limited memory of high school chemistry from his past life and persistent scientific research spirit. How could he possibly hand over this method to someone else? So in order to be foolproof, the entire Baimu Chamber of Commerce has 3 large ships, 2 of which float on the vastly river all day for salt production. When the ship docked at Baihan Island, dozens of guards were already waiting at the dock, and some slaves purchased by Qiao Shang began to help him move the goods on it. As the president of the Baimu Chamber of Commerce, Qiao Shang is the 2 major stewards, Qian Bo and Sun Yang, and there are also several caravan stewards under him. Qian Bo is mainly responsible for the outbound caravan, while Sun Yang is responsible for the management and overall layout of Baihan Island. The 2 people who had just walked onto the island breathed a sigh of relief. Qian Bo's face is still a bit pale, but normal activities are no longer a problem, and he can fully recover after a month of rest. Before the 3 of them could fully enter the island, a small butler dressed in a black robe rushed over with an anxious expression on his face, saying, President, the members of the Giant Axe Gang are here. Xiao Shang, who was walking ahead, frowned. Lijiang not only has Jiang merchants but also Jiang gangs, but most of them are thugs under the hands of major chambers of commerce. Due to the existence of the Lijiang agreement, it is difficult for these large chambers of commerce to directly take action, so they have raised a group of gang forces to act as their thugs. The Giant Axe Gang is a thug raised by Qianshan Chamber of Commerce. What kind of person is here? Xiao Shang asked with an unpleasant expression, where is the person? It's Vice Leader Li, and there are more than a dozen small leaders. They don't say what they're doing, they just wander around, like they're looking for something. We dare not follow them, and we don't know where the people have gone. Xiao Shang nodded. The deputy leaders of the Giant Axe Gang all have 6th level strength, and the little leader also has 7th level. Ordinary guards cannot stop this group of people. He just glanced at the void, and 17 spiritual thoughts headed towards the entire Baihan Island. After only half a breath, the sound of robbery came. 800 meters northeast. Everyone didn't know who was speaking, but Hada was already preparing to head northeast, only to be stopped by Xiao Shang. Let's go take a look together. His tone was calm and not angry. Because the Giant Axe Gang no longer threatens Xiao Shang. An ant won't make him angry, and even the strongest member of the Qianshan Chamber of Commerce behind them is only a 3rd level. Xiao Shang has not yet come up with any hype, and as a business association, being hidden behind the scenes is always the most correct choice. For a warrior, 800 meters is just a few breaths away. Xiao Shang stopped in front of the central rock salt, while Vice Leader Li in front was licking the crystals on the rock salt with one finger. I didn't look back until I heard footsteps behind me, and a teasing smile appeared on my face, saying, President Xiao, it's been a long time since I've seen you. He showed an angry expression and said angrily, the master is not at home. Did Vice Leader Li break in so casually? The Giant Axe Gang had a hint of disdain on their faces. Ordinary chambers of commerce like the Baimu Chamber of Commerce had at least 40 to 50 in Lijiang, while the Giant Axe Gang ranked among the top 20 in the Jiang Gang. Vice Leader Li ignored Xiao Shang's anger and chuckled, what's wrong with President Xiao? This Baihan Island is indeed yours, but this river area is managed by our Giant Axe Gang. Xiao Shang's face was extremely gloomy as he pointed outside and said, please get out of Baihan Island, Deputy Leader. The Giant Axe Gang ignored them and shook their sleeves in disdain as they walked towards the outside. After a few people walked away, Xiao Shang's face quickly calmed down, even with a hint of a smile. Qian Bo asked, somewhat puzzled by his own young master's thoughts, young master, they may have found a problem with the rock salt, so they let them go like this. Xiao Shang nodded and said with a smile on his face, arrange to throw out all the refined salt from the warehouse. Don't hide it this time, sell as high as you can. Chapter 5. Market Island. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sun Yang knows her own young master the best, Xiao Shang must have some plans. Xiao Shang squatted on the ground and looked at the piece of rock salt, saying, the Giant Axe Gang definitely didn't know that we were selling refined salt, so Li Ziren came at the behest of the Qianshan Chamber of Commerce. No matter what we do, the Qianshan Chamber of Commerce will definitely know that refined salt comes from us. Fu Qianshan has been expanding wildly in recent years, and the ready-made money bag is right in front of us. How could he let us go? Sun Yang said anxiously, so you're still selling refined salt on a large scale. Sun Yang. The hungry wild wolf doesn't care if there is meat on its prey, and is very protective of its food. No matter what price we offer, Fu Qianshan will definitely eat it. Xiao Shang's smile became increasingly cunning. And I also have the means to deal with Fu Qianshan, rest assured. He patted the salt crystals on his hand and headed towards the shore. Xiao Shang, a Jiang gang like the Giant Axe Gang, is not favored, which is why he has so many guards. Hada, everyone gather at the school venue. Qiao Shang walked towards the school field at a fast speed, and the system could not only summon but also show the loyalty of his subordinates. In this way, it becomes clear at a glance who is capable of handling minor tasks and can only serve as the guardian of the island. Sun Yang and Qian Bo sat on the observation deck above the schoolyard, looking at Qiao Shang's operation with a puzzled expression. Everyone walked in line in front of him, and Qiao Shang just glanced and divided 1,000 people into 4 lines. The first team is a small butler and guardian with good potential and high loyalty. The second team is a manager and guardian with high loyalty but average abilities. The third team is a guard with low loyalty and potential, but not enough to betray. The members of the fourth team are all those with loyalty below 60, and even some below 10. You should know that these people were all bought by Qiao Shang from the slave market, providing them with good food and drink. Even if they were spies from other forces, their loyalty would not be so low, and they were probably extremely vicious people. So Qiao Shang had no intention of giving these people a good face. He clapped his hands and looked at the 30.2 people with a serious expression, asking, "Do you know what kind of virtue you are?" No one dared to speak out among the 30.2 people, not because of Qiao Shang's dignity, but because they were feeling guilty. But there were always some thick-skinned and uninformed people who asked, "Young master, can you speak frankly?" The speaker was a middle-aged man with a beard on his face and an ordinary appearance. Qiao Shang glanced at this person and said, "He. 13 loyalty, third from the bottom." He smiled and patted the person's shoulder, saying, "Not bad, you have thick skin. Do you think I had a sudden idea to assign you to this team, or do you think I was deceiving you?" After speaking, the silver dagger instantly pierced through this person's shoulder blade. Qiao Shang's face suddenly became fierce, and the strength of the 8th level warrior crushed his hand bones. "Speak up. Who sent you here?" The middle-aged man's face turned pale instantly, and he still held a hint of luck in his heart, saying, "Young master, I am loyal and I don't know what you're saying." "Hada!" Qiao Shang shouted. The 6th level Hada suddenly crushed the middle-aged man's legs and stepped on his face, staring fiercely at him. "You should know how the guards interrogate prisoners. Do you also want to give it a try?" Upon hearing these words, the middle-aged man finally took his last breath and lay on the ground in pain, his mouth full of blood, saying, let go of me. "I am the younger brother of Shao, the steward of the Dark Moon Chamber of Commerce." The faces of the people who were originally unaware of the situation changed greatly, and they never expected that the slaves who came to the Baimu Chamber of Commerce together were actually the Dark Ones sent by other chambers of commerce. Qiao Shang looked expressionlessly at the 30.2 people still standing in front of him, not knowing which forces had sent these people as Dark Sons, but he had heard of the Dark Moon Chamber of Commerce. It is not in this river region, but a medium-sized business association located in the southern river region, with a smaller influence than the Qianshan Business Association, but also with 3rd-level warriors in charge. This middle-aged person is likely to have unexpectedly come to the Baimu Chamber of Commerce. There are also many people like him in other chambers of commerce, and Qiao Shang has his own hidden agenda in other chambers of commerce. After all, as a businessman, the importance of intelligence is self-evident. Qiao Shang handed over 30.2 people to a shadow guard and Hada for handling, and he didn't have time to waste time on these people. To expand the business association, some escorts along the way are essential. Apart from the 400 people guarding the island and the 200 people on the fleet, there are only 200 people left, which is far from enough. The biggest problem that can hinder merchants from doing business is not the rugged roads or distant destinations, but the banditry along the way and the local tariffs and tolls. Compared to these, the expenses of the guards are definitely guaranteed to be profitable. Qian Bo is still injured, and Sun Yang needs to handle the goods brought this time. Therefore, Qiao Shang is taking a medium-sized boat to the market in Lijiang. He is not the only one, there are also Jie, 5 shadow guards, and 30 guards following Qiao Shang. The location of Lijiang is unique, and there are many strange things in the market here. For example, poisonous scorpions from the northern desert and big fish from the East China Sea, both of which are alive. Of course, Qiao Shang was not interested in these things. His goal was to create a slave market in the market. The market is located on a small island about the size of Baihan Island, with boats moored everywhere. Of course, such a large market must have dedicated personnel responsible for managing ships. A man wearing a black long shirt and a mustache came piloting a small boat, which could no longer be considered a boat, just a raft or something like that. The man saluted, and Qiao Shang knew the rules. He threw the man 1 or 2 silver coins and followed the raft to dock at a port on the shore. It was already noon, and many people were carrying packages of all sizes at the port, while others, like Qiao Shang, came to buy slaves. The slaves with disheveled hair and torn clothes were each wearing forbidden chains, and the sound of metal collisions echoed through the harbor, but no one paid attention. Qiao Shang is also accustomed to this. You should know that many things cannot be changed by a small business association. This is the way things are in this world. If you don't do it, people will do it. If you don't let others do it, they will kill you. At the end of the day, it's nothing more than profit. In many places, slaves are a priceless business, with at most a little food and transportation costs, and in the end, they can earn hundreds or thousands of times more profits. Is there any absolute rule in the world that can constantly constrain such inhumane behavior? But some people are even more dissatisfied with this than Qiao Shang. The cold and gloomy aura of the calamity surrounded the body, and the killing intent was about to be suppressed. He himself is an extremely rebellious and self-centered character. The essence of the establishment of the Shadow Stream sect was to suppress the dissatisfaction with traditional moral concepts and to establish something like an ideal country. However, after falling into the quagmire of war, it underwent another transformation. Qiao Shang shook his head, and what he summoned was still in the stage of angry youth, completely unlike the Shadow Flow Lord who had completely abandoned kindness and compassion. That should be why Jia is now just a second-rate talent. Chapter 6. Misfortune cannot be avoided. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A few people went around and finally arrived at the slave market. This side is located at the easternmost end of the island, where cargo ships enter. As soon as I stepped into it, a pungent smell rushed towards me, as if I had fallen into a huge pit of feces. The obese steward raised a smiling face, and his already small eyes were compressed by the fat to the point of being invisible. What kind of slaves do guests want? We all have them here. Qiao Shang also smiled and said, I want to buy, but I'll take a look first. The communication between merchants is sometimes very simple. If he only talks about things, the steward will definitely not do his best to introduce him. As Qiao Shang thought, the steward's smile became even brighter as he raised his hand and walked towards the room, saying, These are the latest slaves brought here, all refugees from the Qian dynasty. Their quality is very good, but their cultivation is a bit poor. In front of me, there were dozens of people curled up in a veil of less than 1 meter, with men and women unable to see their faces clearly. Qiao Shang kept looking at the slaves in the cage, some of whom had expectations in their eyes but couldn't make any sound. Because after being captured, slaves are forced to be poisoned to prevent them from speaking foul language and preventing them from escaping. These slaves are not yet under Qiao Shang's command, and their qualifications and loyalty cannot be seen. But as a third-level warrior, it is not difficult to distinguish the qualifications of those who possess these abilities. Qiao Shang pointed to several shrouds and said, I have reserved these people first. The steward waved his hand and called for the attendants to remove several cages and transport them to the backyard. The qualifications of these refugees from the Qian dynasty were not very good, but their biggest advantage was that they were easy to tame and not as rebellious as the grassland people. Upon entering, there was a huge room, where the slaves were completely different from the refugees of the Qian dynasty. Most of them came from unknown origins or were kidnapped by human traffickers, with no clear pattern to follow. And perhaps this is the true face of the slave market. The suspended cage was filled with limbs and arms, and the smell of blood mixed with the stench of excrement made anyone who had never been here feel nauseous and nauseous. But the chubby steward still introduced Xiao Shang one by one with a smile. The grassland man, the 9th-level warrior, just broke one hand. The pirates from the East China Sea are not yet advanced, but their physical strength is not as strong as the potential of the grassland people before. Ranger, 8th-level warrior, but he seems to be mute. At the time of the steward's introduction, Xiao Shang and this person were facing each other, and the radiance in their eyes was astonishing. The secret message of the calamity came. It's not the 8th level, the severely injured 5th level, and its strength is not weak in the 5th level. Xiao Shang's eyebrows furrowed slightly, 5 steps. The strongest in the entire slave market is only a 6th-level warrior, and even the supervisor of the market is only a 4th-level warrior. Once this person erupts, the supervisor may not have rushed over and the person will run away. Xiao Shang has no intention of getting involved in this mess. You should know that the owner behind the slave market is a truly large chamber of commerce, with a peak 2nd rank and multiple 3rd ranks. He no longer cared about this person, but went towards other cages. Just after Xiao Shang and his companions left, the disheveled and unkempt ranger's eyes flickered with brilliance. This person saw his true strength. He has had a unique pair of eyes since birth, which can provide sharp intuition, just as he can guess that Xiao Shang sees through his cultivation. Xiao Shang and his delegation purchased a total of 62 slaves, including 52 males and 10 females. These women are the future chefs on his ship, while most men become guards. A total of 3,400 taels. Fortunately there were no hidden secrets from other chambers of commerce, and Xiao Shang paid the money very decisively. But accidents are always sudden. The ranger suddenly erupted, completely ignoring the slaves around him, and a bloody aura erupted. A large sword condensed with blood and spiritual power swept across the entire field, and all slaves were spared. The 6th-rank steward came to his senses, his face fierce, and he dragged a giant hammer to fiercely attack the ranger, blocking the unbridled sword to the death. Both the 6th and 5th levels are in the 3rd level, and the ranger is still in a seriously injured state, making it impossible to kill the steward in front of him. It was completely inevitable to erupt now, and he was not sure if Xiao Shang would tell the steward of the slave market about his information. Once exposed, the consequences could be imagined. So he made a decisive move and even wanted to lure Xiao Shang into the water. The illusory giant sword dodged the giant hammer, and the ranger's feet were wrapped in white spiritual power. Countless threads trapped the steward for a short time. He looked at Xiao Shang, who had finished paying the bill and was about to leave, and shouted, "Brother, take action." Xiao Shang stood in place with a bewildered expression on his face, but soon realized that the ranger wanted to drag him down, but he laughed again at the thought of his own strength. The 8th-level warrior's strength has been revealed, not to mention helping him, he cannot even break through defense. The ranger's face also changed dramatically, and he angrily asked, "Why do you only have 8th level?" He originally thought he could see through his cultivation, only mid-level and 3rd-level martial artists. If he could pull him into the water, he could at least delay taking charge. Xiao Shang waved and showed a teasing expression, saying, "Do we know each other?" The trapped steward initially thought that Xiao Shang was the receiver of the ranger, but seeing his 8th-level strength, he also understood this person's thoughts. The surging spiritual power shattered all the fine threads on his body. Damn it! The steward of the slave market was already in a state of rage, and the ranger's sword lost at least 100,000 taels of silver, not to mention building damage. The steward had an extra giant hammer in his hand, and his chubby body, accompanied by 2 giant hammers, fell like meteorites. At this moment, the ranger ignored his anger and dodged the steward's attack with his seriously injured body. He didn't dare to confront the steward head-on, but the delay was too long, and the island supervisor was probably about to arrive. The guards under Qiao Shang's command transported slaves one by one onto the transport ships docked at the nearby port. But the accident happened again, and 3 men in white clothes, embroidered with leaf-shaped embroidery behind them, fell from the sky, blocking a pair of giant hammers for the ranger. And the supervisor also dared to arrive, looking at the 3 white-clothed people in the field with an unpleasant expression and asking coldly in a tone, "Does Mist Island want to go to war with our Haiyue Chamber of Commerce? You are not protected by the Lijiang Agreement." The leader, Bai, took a step forward and arched his hand, saying, "We have no ill intentions. It's just that our junior brother was seriously injured and sold here during his travels. How about we double compensate for the losses of the Haiyue Chamber of Commerce?" The 3 white-clothed warriors are all 4th-level warriors, including 1 4th-level peak, and the Mist Island is indeed not weak. They are willing to compensate, and the deceased are just a group of slaves, with no apparent reason to refuse. The supervisor's face changed and he put on a humble smile, saying, "Since that's the case, it's not easy for the Haiyue Chamber of Commerce to refute the face of Mist Island. You guys take it with you." The leader's white clothes arched to express gratitude. But Qiao Shang, who was not far away, sighed and said, "It's a blessing, not a disaster, it's a disaster that can't be avoided." Sure enough, after dodging the threat of death, the ranger looked at Qiao Shang with fierce resentment in his eyes. It was this person who almost caused him to die in this place. "Senior brother, it's this person who caused me to fall." He raised his finger and sighed at Qiao Shang. However, the person in white led by them did not directly take action, but instead looked towards the supervisor in front of them. After all, it was their territory, which had to be seen from the expression of the Haiyue Chamber of Commerce. The supervisor just glanced at Qiao Shang, an 8th-level warrior. No use of force in the market. The meaning of this is that once Qiao Shang leaves the market, he will no longer be in charge. You can kill or cut him as you please. Chapter 7. Suppression of the 3 people on Mist Island. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The true hegemon of this nearly 1,000-kilometer river is the Haiyue Chamber of Commerce. However, the atomization island is a forbidden area in the Lijiang River, with real strength far inferior to the Haiyue Chamber of Commerce, but no one can break into it thanks to the mysterious fog of the atomization island. What is Qiao Shang? Just an ordinary little vendor. The 2 factions simply decided Qiao Shang's life and death. The robber hidden in the shadows was covered in murderous intent. Just waiting for Qiao Shang's order, he could cut off all of his throat in an instant. But Qiao Shang watched this farce quietly, like a group of passers-by outside, without any awareness of being the protagonist. Many onlookers recognized him as the president of the Baimu Chamber of Commerce, which only slightly eased the stalemate. The disdainful gaze of the supervisor was no longer concealed, while the 3 men in white below stared fixedly at Qiao Shang. Amidst the gaze of everyone, Qiao Shang calmly took a chair and sat down, completely ignoring the gaze of others. Wait until the other guards have taken the slaves away and return to the ship. He wants to see if the manager of Haiyue Chamber of Commerce will let go first or if the 3 white-clad men will take action first. It's just that the supervisor above didn't let go, but he already lacks patience. Aren't your guests leaving yet? His voice carried a hint of coldness. No one in this sea area dared to resist the will of the Haiyue Chamber of Commerce, even with the existence of the Lijiang Agreement. Qiao Shang chuckled and said, "Your esteemed guest. Do you dare not take it seriously? I am just a tool used by the supervisor to gain face." Qiao also saw today what kind of outstanding person the supervisor under the leadership of the hegemonic Chamber of Commerce is. Qiao slowly stood up, patted the dust off his clothes, and then said, "Qiao is also a president, today I will teach you how to be a supervisor." He pointed to 3 men in white and said with a hint of disdain, "What is Mist Island to the Hyatt Chamber of Commerce? It's just a shrinking turtle. What does 200,000 taels of silver mean to the Hyatt Chamber of Commerce? Does this shake your stance? Is this just your stance? As soon as these words were spoken, the supervisor's face suddenly collapsed. He felt as if he had caused trouble. He had been on this broken island for too many years, without considering the attitude of the Hyatt Chamber of Commerce for a while, and only regarded himself as a small island businessman. Qiao Shang shook his head and walked towards the outside, saying calmly, "If you have the courage, follow me. I want to see how you kill me." 3 men in white watched as the supervisor's face changed, ignoring everything else, and chased after Qiao Shang. A man in splendid attire standing among the crowd shook his head. The supervisor was indeed lacking in some manners, much worse than the supervisor who often went out for business, and his style was like that of an elder in a sect. The most important thing for a hegemonic chamber of commerce is its reputation. After all, in the eyes of others, the opponents are all chambers of commerce that are also hegemonic, and even a little bit of profit is irrelevant. Once encountering a real business opportunity, almost reputation will affect the final decision of Party A. If there is no one above this person, the result will not be too good. Immediately, the man shook his head again and chuckled. This person really wouldn't have been sitting in the small market for so many years even if there were people above him. Returning to the ship, Qiao Shang looked unsteadily at the nearby port, and the sound of robbery came from the shadows, saying, "We're catching up." However, Qiao Shang did not see any ships following until the shadow pointed towards the bottom of the river, and then he realized that a huge monster was following behind him. The land of the 3 kingdoms is devoid of spiritual energy, and there are very few demon beasts that can give birth to spiritual intelligence. The atomization island only drives river beasts without spiritual intelligence. After moving away from the small island, the monster at the bottom of the river lifted its head and blocked the sun all day, causing huge waves and shaking Qiao Shang's small boat. A huge black-scaled fish broke through the water, and on top of it stood 3 men in white, who were the 3 people from the Mist Island. One of them reached out and the majestic spiritual power converged into a huge hand, grabbing towards Qiao Shang as if it were a random ant. The outstretched arm disappeared out of thin air in the next moment, and the empty right arm sprayed blood, splattering the snow. White clothes with bloodstains. The 3 of them didn't realize anything was wrong until the white-clothed man who took action felt immense pain and realized that his arm was gone. His cold sweat couldn't stop rolling down, and he knew he had kicked onto the iron plate this time. The other 2 also looked at their junior brother's missing arm with a frightened expression. Suddenly, the black-scaled fish under their feet split in half, and a huge force sucked it onto the hull. Qiao Shang curiously looked at the 3 of them, while the ranger hiding in the fish's belly was already dead and could no longer die. The 3 of them looked at Qiao Shang with a calm expression in fear, their blood freezing all over, and the invisible pressure prevented them from getting up. The pressure of a third-order peak warrior. The upper 3 levels are not comparable to the middle 3 levels at all. The power of heaven and earth mixed with pressure can compress them to the point of vomiting blood and dying. Pass through the Pipa bones, lock the forbidden magic chain, and strictly monitor. Qiao Shang originally intended to directly kill these 3 people, but he suddenly developed a slight interest in the mysterious atomized island. Legend has it that Mist Island is shrouded in mist all year round, and once deeply immersed, everything turns into blood and disappears. There is a natural barrier, but I don't know how high the upper limit of this fog can reach. Can it limit second-level warriors? His Baihan Island is still a bit too small, and its location is also very poor. It is close to a tributary, and there are many rivers that are not so easy to arrange secret sentries. Once someone wants to invade Baihan Island, they can easily find a tributary and follow the water flow to rush to Baihan Island, and they don't have any defense measures yet. So Qiao Shang's wealth and guards were all placed on the drifting ship. It is only now that he dares to move his wealth back to Baihan Island. After all, except for Fu Qianshan himself who committed suicide and went to Baihan Island, there is no one around him who is his opponent. Because it was flowing downstream, I returned to Baihan Island in less than 2 days. Before leaving, Qiao Shang issued an order to start large-scale salt production, and now the island is in full swing. More than 60 mining slaves collected rock salt, processed it briefly, and refined it into finer minerals. They then transported all of them to large ships, where Qiao Shang's confidants began refining refined salt. With the firepower of 2 large ships fully engaged, and relying on the warrior's strong body, it only takes about 10 days to obtain over 10,000 kilograms of refined salt. Using the refined salt used by the imperial court in the Qian dynasty, 1 pound of refined salt can be sold for approximately 3 to 4 taels of silver. This is still the theoretical price. If sold to those nobles, they can offer around 8 taels of silver. So Qiao Shang's profit in 10 days is approximately 100,000 taels of silver. Excluding costs and transportation costs, there are over 90,000 taels of silver, which is like a money printing machine. Chapter 8. Commander of the Royal Guards, Lu Bing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. However, what made Qiao Shang uncomfortable was the production scale of refined salt. Before being promoted to the dominant level of the Chamber of Commerce, his sales of refined salt could not be expanded, limited to his future younger brother. Qianshan Chamber of Commerce and some merchants from Qianchao and other places. Qiao Shang sat at the bow of the ship and sighed, looking at Qianchao in the direction and muttering to himself. I don't know when I can return to Qianchao again. Only a complete royal dynasty is the fertile ground for merchants. After all, relying on the laws of the dynasty, Qiao Shang has many methods to operate. Before the dynasty merchants could tear their faces apart, the Baimu Chamber of Commerce had no need to shrink back and avoid hegemons like the Haiwa Chamber of Commerce. Did the giant axe gang make any moves these days? Qiao Shang asked while drinking tea. Though the shadow guard in the shadows appeared and respectfully stood aside, saying, apart from sending a letter to the Qianshan Chamber of Commerce, there hasn't been much action since then. However, Qianshan Chamber of Commerce used various means to block the news that we were selling refined salt, and even bought all the refined salt at a high price. Qiao Shang nodded, knowing the news. Previously, he asked Sun Yang to sell the refined salt at 10 times the price, and the wealth value on the panel had been increasing. Now it has returned to the 10 o'clock mark, which means he can use a second-level lottery. The reason why I haven't summoned anyone is because my subordinates have too much strength disconnection, except for a 6th-level Hada, there aren't many 7th-level ones. Would it be better to fill the gap in the 3rd-level strength or simply summon a second-rate hero? There is still a slight difference. With more than a dozen shadow guards, his market can expand even larger. For example, if he enters a caravan in the northern desert, his Baimu Chamber of Commerce is also eligible to be established. Fearing that the plan wouldn't keep up with the changes, Qiao Shang shook his head and murmured, I've thought too much. Let's get over the current difficulties first. After speaking, the summoning is activated again, and consciousness enters the vast sea of stars once again. The system uses a second-level summoning. A blue star broke through the space and came. Ding, congratulations to the host for receiving the loyalty of Ming Dynasty's Lu Bing. Note. The mall unlocks the last class hero genie guard, summoning character. Lu Bing, cultivation. Martial 3rd level, loyalty. 100, potential. Second-rate talents. Qiao Shang's eyes slowly lit up as he looked at the system, his whole body trembling uncontrollably. Commander of the Imperial Guards of the Ming Dynasty, Lu Bing. Among his peers in intelligence, Lu Bing may not be as famous. But from all aspects, Lu Bing is definitely the most balanced, outstanding person. The ability to use force, emotional intelligence, and strategize are all at the top. As a businessman, Lu Bing's abilities are definitely their most ideal talents. After all, a powerful chamber of commerce has branches spread across various countries and regions, requiring many talents to lead the branches. Moreover, Lu Bing is still an expert in intelligence, and he is simply a talent tailored for Qiao. The space in front of him was torn open by a crack, and Lu Bing was tall and burly, but he had a sword eyebrow starry face. My subordinate Lu Bing has met the president. Qiao Shan waved his hand and pulled him up, saying, Commander Lu doesn't need to be like this. I'll be grateful for your guidance in the future. Upon hearing this, Lu Bing became even more respectful and stood up, clasping his fists, saying, It's all my duty to fulfill. Undoubtedly, he is a figure who comes out of the palace. He handles things smoothly and speaks with official aura, without any omissions. Since Lu Tongling has arrived, then you will be responsible for keeping an eye on the Qianshan Chamber of Commerce. Xiao Shan thought for a while and said, After all, Jia and Shadow Guard are both assassins. It's better to entrust this kind of surveillance work to professional people. Lu Bing clenched his fists again and his figure disappeared onto the ship's planks. After he left, Xiao Shan frowned. Summoning not only brings Lu Bing, but also the last generation of talented genie guards. So, robbing someone can be compared to Lu Bing and the royal guards. But from multiple perspectives, besides his military strength, Lu Bing's ability should be superior to that of Lu Bing, so is it because the potential of Lu Bing is much higher than that of Lu Bing? Xiao Shan shook his head and stopped thinking if he couldn't figure it out. Open the panel and look at the mall page. There are additional options for the royal guards in the first-level summon mall. However, unlike Shadow Guard, there are several options on the icon of the royal guards, such as 1 point of wealth value for commander and 1 point of wealth value for warrior. Total flag 0.5 wealth value, warrior level 5. 0.3 wealth value per 1,000 households, warrior level 6. 100 households with 0.1 wealth value, warrior level 7. Xiao Shang's eyes are getting brighter and brighter. Is he still buying a slave with fur? Looking at the remaining 0.8 points of wealth on the surface, purchase a general flag and 1,000 households, and dispatch the 2 to Lu Bin. It seems that the speed of accumulating wealth needs to be accelerated. In the Qianshan Chamber of Commerce, Fu Qianshan, who was originally sitting upright, said dejectedly, Have all the people from Haiyue Chamber of Commerce left? Yes, the president, but do we really have to agree to their terms? With the Lijiang agreement in place, they are just a second-level warrior and cannot attack us. We don't need to be humble. The speaker is a sub-president of Qianshan Chamber of Commerce, and can be considered one of the founders of Qianshan Chamber of Commerce. Many of its branch presidents also nodded, and the interests of Qianshan Chamber of Commerce are their own. No one is willing to give up. Upon hearing the words, conditions, Fu Qianshan's bald expression turned into resentment. Do you really think those hegemonic chambers of commerce are so simple? Fu Qianshan's face was extremely gloomy as he said, except for the world's first gang of Chao Gang, none of the hegemonic forces are tentacles that others have reached into the Li River. Standing behind the Haiyue Chamber of Commerce is the only king of the Qian dynasty with a different surname, the Prince of Northern Liang. Li Zhen. Everyone present was shocked, not only by Li Zhen's reputation, but also by his strength, one of the martial arts powerhouses on the surface of the Qian dynasty. That is a cultivator who has surpassed the first level and possesses the true power to move mountains and fill the sea. Even if he is willing, it is only a matter of manual action to overthrow the entire Lijiang River. Fu Qianshan's face softened a bit and he continued, however, if the Haiyue Chamber of Commerce can get the support of the Northern Liang King, so can our Qianshan Chamber of Commerce. Everyone present was the core of Qianshan Chamber of Commerce, and someone suddenly understood and said. What does the president mean by refined salt? Fu Qianshan nodded and finally showed a smile on his face. How is the investigation into the Baimu Chamber of Commerce going? One of the top officials shook his head and said, There's no need. The strongest member of the Baimu Chamber of Commerce is only 6 levels. The chairman, Xiao Shan, used to be a refugee and only came to Lijiang 4 years ago. If it weren't for the Lijiang agreement, he would have been killed long ago. Fu Qianshan frowned and said, "But the Baimu Chamber of Commerce has been selling refined salt on a large scale recently, which is not right." The steward also frowned, but still said, "Perhaps Qiao Shang from the Baimu Chamber of Commerce is just a young man under the age of tying his hair, and has been mesmerized by the benefits of refined salt." Fu Qianshan thought for a while, but couldn't find a reasonable reason to explain Qiao Shang's approach. He reluctantly accepted the statement of the steward. He never imagined that a small Baimu Chamber of Commerce could have the power to shake him. This conversation, along with previous conversations with the Hyatt Chamber of Commerce, was listened to by Lu Bing. The hidden ability of Lu Bing is even inferior to that of the 4th level Shadow Guard, but the ability of the Royal Guards is far from being as simple as hiding. Lu Bing sat in the main hall of Qianshan Chamber of Commerce as if there were no one else, listening to the conversation in its entirety. No one noticed that there was an extra person in the room. Chapter 9. Inheriting Bloodline. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After everyone had left the venue, Lu Bing stood up and handed over the conversation to a shadow guard. According to Qiao Shang's suggestion, it is not yet time to take action against Qianshan Chamber of Commerce. It seems like a correct decision. The top chambers of commerce in Lijiang may seem unrelated, but in reality, they are all groups bound together by interests. Qiao Shang looked at the letter in his hand with a hint of disdain on his face. The main industry of Qianshan Chamber of Commerce is grassland animal husbandry. It's not a big deal, but ancient dynasties had something that ordinary people couldn't touch. War horses. The grassland has high-quality war horses, which are what both the Qian dynasty and Kangyi ancient kingdom wanted, and it is also one of the most profitable industries for all chambers of commerce in Lijiang. But almost all the buying and selling of warhorses are monopolized by hegemonic chambers of commerce. Qianshan Chamber of Commerce, wearing the coat of animal husbandry, privately raises warhorses on a large scale and sells them to the public. This has touched the heart of the Haiyue Chamber of Commerce. How can Qianshan Chamber of Commerce continue to raise them, so this time they are using their power to overpower others? They demanded that Fu Qianshan hand over all the warhorses he raised, and also dispatch a dedicated person to enter the animal husbandry industry of the Qianshan Chamber of Commerce to thoroughly monitor their every move. Fu Qianshan could only nod and agree to such an outrageous condition. After all, it is stronger than others, and he cannot refuse it if he wants to. No wonder Qianshan Chamber of Commerce has not taken action against him for a long time. But what surprised him was that behind the Haiyue Chamber of Commerce was the Prince of Beiliang. Although it is impossible for a northern Liang king to extend his hand to the Li River, the influence of a person's martial arts realm can make him obedient as he is now. In this way, his Baimu Chamber of Commerce will have to hide for a while, otherwise it will be difficult to attract the attention of Haiyue Chamber of Commerce. 3 days later, the temperature in Lijiang dropped sharply, and the cold air from the north looked like a master skilled in decoration. In just one night's effort, the entire northern land was covered in snow. White patches. The snow in other worlds is special. Each snowflake is the size of a finger, and even the snow that falls on the ground becomes very thick, like a thick white carpet. Qiao Shang sat at the bow of the ship in a daze. Although it was not the first time he had seen such a snowy scene, the breathtaking whiteness still surprised him immensely. Everything was too dreamy. This snow has also brought a cold winter to most industries. For example, the grain and cloth from the Baimu Chamber of Commerce. The price of grain remains high, and the price difference they earn will be pitiful. The fabric business in the Qian dynasty will also cease, as most of the trade routes are impossible for ordinary people to travel unless they pass through the Lijiang River. But at this time, the north wind is strong, and without the technology of previous lives, it is extremely difficult for ordinary large ships to go north. Not to mention the toll fees that need to be paid for each section of the Lijiang River. Qiao Shang clenched the long knife in his hand and began practicing his swordsmanship over and over again, honing his body in the cold wind. These days, he has already felt the threshold of the 7th level, almost one step away from breaking through. The boy on the bow of the boat waved his narrow knife faster and faster, as if blood was flowing in the cold wind. The snowflakes were completely blown away by the steaming blood. As he danced, Qiao Shang's anger grew heavier and heavier in his heart. The common saying is, "Sharpen a sword for 10 years, never try the frost blade." Unfortunately, Qiao Shang has been practicing martial arts and doing business for 8 years without achieving any success. Living in this chaotic world, being blown away by the wind of the river. But every time I think about the death of my parents or the death of the Qiao family, my anger feels like a volcano that is about to erupt. At the thought of his own talent, he may not be able to break through the 3rd level until he dies, and that powerlessness makes him gasp for breath. The figure of Jia appeared next to Qiao Shang, and the icy shadow power brought him back to reality from the chaos. Qiao Shang sat on the ground, panting wildly, and sweat couldn't stop flowing down. "Young master, you're almost possessed." Jia was a bit nervous because he had just felt a very violent power from Qiao Shang. He didn't know what it was, but he still said, "I feel a chaotic and violent power from you, I don't know." Qiao Shang shook his head and slowly stood up with the help of the robbery. "It should be a kind of bloodline power, too thin and useless. His talent is actually very poor. If it weren't for this tiny bloodline, it would be difficult for him to enter the 8th level now." Qiao Shang also investigated the matter of bloodline, but all the members of the Qiao family have died, and no one knows what bloodline it is. Even in the Qian dynasty, there were very few bloodlines. It seems that apart from the imperial family of the Qian dynasty, only the 4 major aristocratic families have bloodline inheritance. Bloodline can enhance the potential of the human race. Even if the bloodline is weak, the imperial family and the 4 major aristocratic families of the Qian dynasty have been able to control the Qian dynasty for so many years thanks to their thin bloodline inheritance. Otherwise, how can we ensure that future generations are all talented individuals? You should know that the 4 major aristocratic families and the royal family all have people stationed in the martial arts realm, and on the surface, there are even more than a dozen people who have reached the 3rd rank. Whether it has been passed down for thousands of years or is still so strong, it all depends on the credit of our bloodline. Of course, bloodline is not limited to this ability. For example, the leader of the only hegemonic Jiang gang in Lijiang. The Qiao gang. Every time they punch, their blood will turn into armor to assist on their arms and fist peaks. This is the manifestation of blood vessels. But Qiao Shang's blood vessels inside his body are too thin to awaken. Apart from enhancing his potential, there is no use for farts, and there is even a risk of being possessed. Forget it, let's not talk about this, calculate the time. The leader of the giant axe gang, Li Russian, should also arrive. Standing on the left and right, Ji sneered, "The shadow guard will handle it." Qiao Shang nodded, a small giant axe gang didn't need to care. Nowadays, the speed at which Baimu Chamber of Commerce accumulates wealth far exceeds that of ordinary chambers of commerce, and is even no weaker than Qianshan Chamber of Commerce. Of course, this is all related to Qianshan merchants purchasing refined salt at no cost. In Qiao's eyes, it's a bit like withdrawing money from the bank in advance, because Qianshan Chamber of Commerce is already a piece of meat in his plate. Less than 100 kilometers away from Baihan Island. 5 large ships, along with a dozen medium-sized express boats, were parked in place, as if they had been frozen in place by a blizzard. A huge flag fluttered above the main ship, with 2 intersecting giant axes painted on it. The atmosphere below was extremely cold, with the 3 shadow guards holding bloody daggers and their black robes revealing only a pair of calm eyes as they looked at the only person still standing. Li Russian was too imposing to breathe. Half a minute ago, the 3 of them suddenly appeared on the ship and without saying a word, they launched a killing spree. In less than 3 breaths, he was the only one left. As a 5th-level warrior, he is well aware that the 3 people in front of him are all 4th level assassins and the top level. An old fogey like him is not an opponent at all. He doesn't even have the ability to fight. Li Rushan thought of the recent large-scale sale of refined salt by the Baimu Chamber of Commerce. It seems that they are not blinded by interests at all, but are not afraid of the giant axe gang in Qianshan Chamber of Commerce. Thinking of this, he slowly closed his eyes, and his decade-long foundation turned into nothing. Chapter 10. The Theory of Qi Yun. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Half an hour later, Xiao Shang boarded the Grand Axe Gang ship on a fast boat. This ship is 1 circle larger than his best large ship, and the keel on it is flawless. Only those top chambers of commerce have such a large ship. Xiao Shang patted the ship's edge and said with a smile, "This will be our main ship from now on. Let's put salt production on top of it." Qian Bo, who followed behind, also looked at the big ship happily and nodded incessantly, saying, "Good young master." I frowned as I looked at the wreckage and broken arms all over the ship. "I'll go meet Li Rushan first. Can you ask someone to clean up, Qian Bo?" As he spoke, he walked towards the inside. At this moment, Li Rushan was like a deflated ball, wilting and unable to lift any energy. When Xiao Shang arrived here, a glimmer of gold flickered in his eyes. He looked at Li Rushan with a smile and said, "Leader Li, the last time we met was a year ago. I didn't expect this kind of scene to happen the next time we met." Li Rushan sighed, and every day, Li Zhang's power is born and dies. He was also prepared for this, but he didn't expect to be destroyed by a business association he didn't like. Li was so blind back then. I didn't see that President Xiao was a cannibalistic tiger. How could Master Li say that? After all, it was you who took the initiative, so how could I become a cannibalistic tiger? Xiao Shang pulled out a chair and sat leisurely in front of Li Rushan, then continued. "And I have no intention of destroying the giant axe gang either." Listening to what was said earlier, Li Rushan was a bit indifferent. He became a king and defeated the enemy, and it didn't matter what he said. But as soon as I heard Xiao Shang's last words, I suddenly felt refreshed. After all, no one wanted to die, nor did they want the foundation they had worked hard to establish to disappear. Li Rushan stared at Xiao Shang and asked, "What do you want?" "The giant axe gang can be the thugs of Qianshan Chamber of Commerce, why can't they become the thugs of my Baimu Chamber of Commerce?" Xiao Shang leaned back in his chair and slowly spoke, "The price is that the giant axe gang will no longer be the sole authority of Leader Li." Li Rushan paused for a moment and asked, "President Xiao is confident in dealing with the Qianshan Chamber of Commerce. And..." He hesitated to speak, just looking at Xiao Shang. "If I dare to do so, I am confident that I can block the mouth of Qianshan Chamber of Commerce." Xiao Shang's gaze was a bit cold and he said, "Moreover, it's not that I look down on Fu Qianshan, just his brain capacity is afraid he can't make any unexpected actions. But the biggest obstacle to selling salt is still the Haiyue Chamber of Commerce." Li Rushan stuttered. Xiao Shang snorted twice and nodded, saying, "Not bad, so I still have to pull the code of Qianshan Chamber of Commerce to sell salt. Don't worry, this matter won't be leaked for a while. When the Haiyue Chamber of Commerce discovers it, I can kill them." Li Rushan remained silent and nodded in agreement with Xiao Shang's statement, which was considered as selling himself out. The matters behind the giant axe gang will be handled by Qian Bo, with the assistance of Shadow Guard on the side. It is not difficult to recover the giant axe gang. Xiao Shang sat at the bow of the ship, with a huge screen blocking the oncoming cold wind, lying on a recliner basking in the sun. In the giant axe gang, several shadow guards kept moving boxes of gold from the treasure trove. In the land of the 3 kingdoms, 1 tael of gold equals 100 taels of silver. The wealth value on the system panel has skyrocketed, and in no time has it broken through the 50 levels, heading straight towards the 100. Having a backing is different. Xiao Shang sighed. It's not that the giant axe gang has a lot of money, but that the Baimu Chamber of Commerce is too poor, like a working boy living in a first-tier city who empties his wallet after eating, drinking, and sleeping. How can he save money? But the giant axe gang is different. It has a good father, and he takes care of everything he earns. His good father doesn't want the money he earns, just help him beat people. In the end, the wealth value remained at 123 points, which is just over 100 taels of silver, not to mention more than 20 fleets. The sound of the system comes from Ding host's wealth value exceeds 100 points, activate level 3 summoning, reward level 3 summoning once. Xiao Shang stood up abruptly from the recliner, his smile barely suppressed. Consciousness enters the vast starry sky. The system uses a level 3 summoning once. A purple light burst through the void, and a figure wearing a small hat and a long robe walked from the void. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining the loyalty of Han Xiaohe's summoning character. Xiaohe, cultivation. Wen Dao second level, loyalty. 100, potential. Top-notch talents, hahaha. Xiao Shang's laughter thundered, startling everyone on the ship's deck. Everyone looked at Xiao Shang with strange eyes. His smile abruptly came to an end, and he waved his hand to the crowd, letting them all go their separate ways. A middle-aged man wearing a gray-white robe appeared on the boat, with an extremely ordinary appearance and no unusual features. But only Xiao Shang knows how terrifying this person's ability to coordinate the overall situation is. He is the Minister of Logistics of the Great Han, a true talent, and a first-class hero. Xiao Shang grabbed Xiaohe's hand and became more and more satisfied as he looked at it. Xiaohe, you will be my first chief executive in the future. Xiaohe withdrew his hand from Xiao Shang's hand and arched, saying, Xiao will definitely help the president manage the Chamber of Commerce well. Xiao Shangang was about to call Qian Bo over and explain some matters to Xiaohe when he suddenly remembered something. He turned to Xiaohe and asked, do you want me to be the emperor? This is not unfounded. With the existence of Qin Shi Huang, a great ancestor, the outstanding people were very passionate about unification and expanding territory. Even though these summoning characters have no memories of their past lives, it is difficult to articulate what is engraved in their bones. Xiaohe showed a hint of helplessness on his face and said, President, do you know the dynasties of this world? Xiao Shang frowned and shook his head, saying, is there any other explanation for this? Xiaohe sighed and said, the emperor carries the fortune of the people, and the fortune never dissipates. The dynasty never dies. We use the Qian dynasty as a metaphor, and in order to overthrow it, we must destroy its vitality. That is to say, the people of the Qian dynasty must reach a state of poverty and detachment from the Qian dynasty in order to shake their vitality. Of course, it can also be broken through with force. For example, when a heavenly martial realm is engaged in a large-scale killing, one's luck is a very troublesome thing. Once a large-scale killing occurs, one will become a person abandoned by heaven. One cannot mobilize the power of heaven and earth or draw a trace of spiritual power. Xiao Shang fell into contemplation for a moment and asked, isn't the Qian Huang invincible by relying on his luck? Xiaohe shook his head and said, Qi luck is not the Qi luck of the emperor, but the Qi luck of the people in the world. The strength of the Qian Huang will not exceed the martial arts realm by much, and even if you kill the Qian Huang, you will not become a person abandoned by heaven. Xiao Shang understood that the emperor of a dynasty was just a carrier of luck, equivalent to luck choosing a strong one from among the people. However, in the end, he was just one person, and killing him was not considered a major killing.